Good afternoon and welcome to the 25th annual exhibit of hydrogen fuel cell technologies. I'd like to invite you all to come closer, sit down and have a drink. The drinks are on the house, and be prepared to talk about what you can do with low-cost, demand-driven green hydrogen. It's all in one sentence there. I'll be talking to Ellart, who's Chief Technology Officer of HyGear. Welcome, Ellart.
Hi, Brian. Thanks for having me.
So, I know HyGear, back in the old days, we used to consume a lot of hydrocarbons in the form of alcohol here with your company colleagues way back. Tell us about the history, though. We know you, not everyone does. The history of your company, when it was formed, why, where you're located, and what you do.
Well, HyGear, we were founded in 2002. We're based in the Netherlands. We founded the company with the idea that in 2005, a lot of fuel cell cars will be driving on the roads. There will be a demand of hydrogen. And we saw that transport of hydrogen is difficult. So we decided, okay, let's make a system that you can on-site make hydrogen. And that's why we made our reformer systems. And we're selling them today. Yep.
This is, for me, fascinating because I do remember the old days, 2005. We all expected there would be 100,000 fuel cell cars on the roads. People were talking about this. Can you imagine how far behind we are? This was 2005. But yeah, back to the main product of the day in those days, steam reforming of natural gas. We like to have green hydrogen here, so I always say reforming of natural gas, oh, you're the bad guys. You keep us addicted to hydrocarbons here. But that's not all you do, right?
No. Well, first of all, I think reforming the natural gas is not that bad because I think it's better than just putting in the car directly. So if you first make hydrogen out of it and then drive the car, you still save 30 to 40% of CO2. So using natural gas is not that bad. And then, of course, you can make it in other ways as well.
I always like to stress this point because it's true that well over 50% of the homes in Germany, for example, are heated, the hot water and the heating in the homes. It's produced by natural gas. Well, there's other ways of using natural gas, and one of them is reforming. That's your expertise. You could do that, and because it's more efficient, you drop the CO2 emissions by 30%. But instead of simply using gray natural gas sources for hydrogen, you can go green. And can you do that with reforming technology right now?
Yeah. I think it is every system. It is what you put in, you get out. So there's a lot of CO2 neutral or renewable biofuels that you can reform. So yes, you can also make green hydrogen out of reformer systems. And we do that for customers. So the hydrogen we make in Arnhem, our own site, we can produce green hydrogen for the customer just by using reformers. And we are really methane focused these days, but yeah, you can reform a lot of biofuels, methanol, biomethanol, bioethanol. There are a lot of different bio sources or waste sources that you can use.
What I find so interesting here again, and I have to continually return to this point, biofuels are in the discussion. The use of biofuels is, it's a no-brainer. What do? You use biodiesel in a diesel car. You use biogas in a gas car. We remind everyone that that is not the most effective use of a hydrocarbon. Reforming is always better, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. So I think the route through hydrogen is always better because you can use the fuel cell, and that is such an efficient technology that any fuel you convert first to hydrogen is always better than directly putting in an engine or even burn it or whatever. So always the route through hydrogen is favorable. And that's also why we focused a lot in the gas reforming and the biomethane reforming, that we also have that route to the green hydrogen. And there's a lot of biogas wasted these days. So you don't always use all the biogas. A lot is flared. A lot of people look at the curtailing of wind energy, but also there's a lot of biomass and biogas wasted that you can also convert into the green hydrogen.
We have to go into detail there because to distinguish between biofuels and what you do is super important. There is a logistical conundrum when you talk about biodiesel. That is it really worthwhile to use up ground to grow crops that are not edible to use diesel power and ammonia on the fields to keep things growing quickly, to produce a biofuel that is theoretically carbon neutral when you can be doing other things with that piece of land, and it may not even be good for the soil to continually produce there's arguments for and against, but what is so interesting here is there is no debate if you focus on a source of, it's renewable because it's wasted, although it's continuously in production, the nature of human civilization and biodegrading materials here. So you really have chosen one biofuel to focus on, and that is?
Yeah, biomethane, yeah. That is exactly. There's a lot of waste already there. It's a continuous supply, so you can always continuously make hydrogen, because making green hydrogen is nice to make it, but the customers need a continuous demand. So you have to make sure that you can supply it. So I think a combination with the electrolyze systems and the reformer systems can be a very good combination together. One takes the waste of electricity, the other can take the waste of the biogases, the biomass, and together then I think you can have a steady supply of green hydrogen for the customers, and that's what you want, because customers want not once in a while hydrogen, they always want hydrogen when they need it. So I think together then it's a good combination, and you can supply it continuously, and by doing that in that way, it can be low cost and cheap.
You already mentioned, I'm repeating myself, I know, but when we say biofuels, and it just occurred to me, we always think that these are crops grown for biofuels. And it's almost as if we need to reinvent the term biofuels, because in fact, these are not specifically produced plants, it is waste gas. And this puts you on the precise same level as the electrolyzers that try to harvest what is wasted. We all know that in Germany right now we turn off wind turbines because the grid cannot absorb all of the energy they produce, simply because the grid is not a storage device, but hydrogen is, and you can use electrolysis and electrical energy to store that. The analog is really super important. We're not growing crops, there is curtailed energy. We know that it's 7 terawatts a year of curtailed electrical current we're losing, huge costs, because we're turning the wind turbines off. Do you have any idea of the volumes of methane that are escaping a rational use? And they're just being shot into the atmosphere, aren't they, or burned?
Yeah, I don't have exact numbers, but I think depending on which country you are, some countries really emit the biomethane directly to the atmosphere, which is really terrible, because the methane molecule is 27 times more greenhouse gas than CO2. So luckily, in most countries, it's now demanded that you burn it, but still, you have a lot of flares. It's flaring. I think a lot of the water treatment plants in Europe, they have gas. They make biogas, and a lot of them just burn it. They just flare it, maybe burn it a little bit to have some heat, but they really use it as a very low-cost energy source. And making hydrogen out of it is way more better for the environment, and also a much better way of earning money, because hydrogen is way more valuable than only heat. So I think the ideas of using that waste is very interesting.
This is exactly the turning methane, which is a hydrocarbon, into hydrogen, which is just hydrogen, is actually an increase in value if you find the right application. And I suppose this is the next question we have to get into. Is there a market? If we look around here, we see companies that are doing the same thing in a logical way of looking at it, that is creating green molecules of hydrogen. We have people who can capture excess grid energy, respond very quickly and create that into hydrogen. You do virtually the same thing, and people are always saying, okay, when are we going to have a hydrogen economy? When is there going to be enough hydrogen that we do not need to burn coal to stabilize the grid? We don't need to import massive quantities of hydrocarbons from Northern Europe or elsewhere. Factually, the answer is always, we're ready to upscale our production of hydrogen, but where's the market? So what is the market like? Here you have a source of green hydrogen. Is the market expanding? Is it being used rationally, the hydrogen you produce? Where are we in this approach towards a green economy?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think exactly. I think we are suffering the same issue as the other companies. Is that where is the market for the green hydrogen? So I think the most important thing that we have to create together is first a market, because I think all the companies are ready to scale up, produce hydrogen, and get it to the market. But yeah, you need regulations in place that is favorable to use the green part of it, because otherwise it is very cheap to make it out in a gray way, and that's where you're competing with. So it is really, we have to make a market on the green hydrogen that you can put it there, because I think the industry is ready to produce it. But now we really need a steady market, and that market needs to be grown. And you can maybe not focus immediately completely green, but as long there is a big pool of market demand on hydrogen, that will increase the ways of making it, and allow the companies to grow and expand their business. So I think we are on the same side and say let's create a market and get the green hydrogen there. And
I should add that if there are any questions from the audience, we will try to address them in the last few minutes of our conversation, if you just raise your hand. I am certainly, it just occurred to me, there's 1,000 questions here. I have never moderated a discussion. I've been here 15 years, and I've never moderated a discussion where we talk about reforming what you call biofuels, but what I add wasted methane that is going to go into the atmosphere unused. It's a crying shame, as we say in English. There's one dimension here I'd like to add to this, though, and that is when you look at the electrolysis industry, and people are saying, when are you going to deliver us a fuel that is fossil fuel parity? That is, per kilowatt hour, it's going to be comparable to what you get on the grid, or it's going to compete with natural gas. I'm getting back to this major question here. They can tell us how much a kilowatt hour costs, and it depends obviously on the cost of the renewable energy or the energy grid that they're using if it's electrolysis. They look at the price of the kilowatt hour, and I can tell you the price for a kilogram of hydrogen. Can you provide less expensive hydrogen by using methane, wasted methane, and reforming it?
yes, we think. Yeah, we can. It's the biofuel, biomethane is relatively cheap, and the process is quite efficient. If you convert the natural gas or the methane or the biomethane to hydrogen, it's a very efficient process. And we've worked a lot on the technology on that in the last couple of years. So the operational cost depend much less on electricity cost than an electrolyzer does. So I think the benefit of using the green methane is just that per kilowatt it's much cheaper. So gas is cheaper than electricity, and so that's why I think really for the near future that is the pathway to get a low cost solution.
And nevertheless, you've decided to use the green hydrogen logic as opposed to what you used to do in the old days, which is reforming natural gas. Still not the worst hydrocarbon in existence. I'm from Canada. The tar sands are a crime against humanity. So what we need is an expanding market. This technology is obviously a game-changing factor in the sense that it is non-polluting. You have to add, it's not only non-polluting, it's recovering what would be pollution in the form of energy and using it productively before it escapes into the atmosphere. But we need environmental policies for the applications. Everyone knows that you want the biggest bang per dollar. And if you say, oh, we can provide hydrogen by reforming natural gas is really inexpensive right now. So the price of the hydrogen molecule is really inexpensive there. The big payers, the people who will pay more per kilogram of hydrogen, are things like bus systems, where there are premiums for providing non-emission vehicles in the centers of city. People are sick and tired of breathing in the exhaust of diesel vehicles. So you're from the Netherlands. Are there environmental policies there that privilege the green hydrogen molecule as opposed to the reformed, or that give you the advantage over conventional combustion motors? What does it look like there for the application side? Are there policies in place?
Not many, to be honest. I think a very important one is in the Netherlands is that we don't put any taxes on hydrogen if you use it as a fuel. So that really helps to compete with the diesel and the gasoline today. But there's a lot of climate discussion in the Netherlands right now. We want to meet the Paris objectives on the climate. Like we do in the Netherlands, there's a lot of discussion. All stakeholders can have a discussion with it, and they have 6 discussion groups. We call them tables. And of those 6 groups, 5 take hydrogen as the basis of reaching the objectives. So I think the industry and also the policymakers see hydrogen is not a luxury thing. But if you want to meet the Paris objectives, there's only one way: you have to use the hydrogen. And so I think a couple of years ago, no one was talking about hydrogen. Only here we're talking about it. We saw the future. And then within a few years, 2-3 years, right now it is at the core of the energy transition, at all the policymakers, at industry, and all the people around it. So it is not a discussion is what is the price and what are we going to do with it. It is just if you want to reach the objective, you need it. And if you need it, you have to make the policy around it. So right now I think the good thing right now is that people saw that it is needed. So now we are going into the discussion at the moment in the government is, okay, if it is so important, then how do we set the policies around it? So yes, they are making policies today. So I think that's a very good thing, a good sign. And it's very nice to see that, yeah, a couple of years ago, hydrogen was a little bit out of the picture, and now it's just seen as a given fact. Without it, we will never reach the objectives that we have set together. And as a country, the Netherlands, we want to reach the Paris objectives on the climate. Yeah.
At the beginning of the week, we had a discussion on a 40 gigawatt electrolyzer alliance. The idea is, of course, to ramp up production, to force the cascade of resulting things, that is affordable cars, because the fuel's there, the fueling stations, the networks and everything. But the way they formulated this is the 40 gigawatt electrolyzer alliance. Don't you feel that you're being underestimated and a bit left out of the debate? When people are talking about green hydrogen, until today, they've been consistently talking about renewable electricity, wind turbines and solar, and electrolyzers. Do you feel a little bit left out of the discussion?
Oh, that's a good question. Sometimes you feel it like that because it gives a very simplified view on what we have to accomplish. And I think that no technology alone can solve all the problems. And so sometimes it's really set like that. And I understand that people want to team up together, and I think that's good. But behind the scenes, people talk to each other, people know those kind of things. So a lot of people know there are different ways to get to green hydrogen, but sometimes the story you want to broadcast outside, you don't want to make too complex. So I understand that sometimes you want to make the story very simple, understandable to the people, and then you simplify the story. So, but we can take that, there's no problem, because I think in the end, all the big players and all the stakeholders know that reforming is a very important part of getting to the future there. And so maybe in the simplification of the message we're left out, but in the final solution we will not.
Are you going to be back here next year?
I think we plan on that, yes.
Okay, I have my wish list already right now. It'd be great to see you back here next year, particularly with some concrete numbers that we can impress the other people with. We know how many terawatts of energy is being wasted from the electrical grid because we're curtailing the production of it. It'd be great to know the quantities we're talking about, wasted methane, and how much energy is there and what the potential is if we expand that production. We need to have some competition for these guys before they get all the market. So I'm counting on you to come back next year, Ellart.
Okay, no problem.
It's been a pleasure talking to you. I've been talking to Ellart de Wit, who's Chief Technology Officer at HyGear. The booth is D73. For more detail, go and visit him there. There's a lot more to talk about, and it is such an important, engaging topic. Thanks so much for being here.